Hello everybody, my name's Alex Berner, and I'm the composer for Mojo Filter Media. I'm on a quest to learn, grow, and become a better composer every day, and I hope you join me on that journey. Today we're going to break down the theme song I wrote for Breakfast in Beauclair, a Global Witcher podcast. I had a great time working on this, and the show's host and creator Alyssa gave me a lot of great reference materials to listen to and get inspiration from. It was a lot of fun listening through the Witcher game soundtracks to hear their interpretation of the Witcher universe, and now that the show's out, it's cool to see 3 different interpretations of how that world could be conveyed musically. So let's take a listen to the full version of the theme song, the one you don't usually hear in the podcast because it's too long for an intro. Then we'll talk about the process of creating it. Sound good? So let's talk about getting the track started. First, we need to establish a setting. What world are we in? What era? These things can be answered with instrumentation choices. I chose to go with the European flute, choir, and arpeggiated nylon string guitar. These instruments help to give it a time and place, medieval, fantasy. Add in a few perfect fifths in the choir, and add a bunch of reverb to it, and now we're in a medieval monastery. Using those instruments, I came up with a melody, which starts with a classic D minor arpeggio. You know that one. Then I added some arpeggiated guitar chords to fill out the rest of the harmony. Then finally, we added in those Gregorian chant parallel fifths. We worked through writing the A section, then the B section, and we're all set. We got a melody, harmony, and form. Cool, so we have a setting and musical outline. Now we need to establish the energy of the scene. First off, who is it? Let's go with Geralt. What's he doing? Well, what's he usually do? Kill monsters. Let's go with that. So what kind of groove or energy does that imply? How about some big, boomy, epic, in-your-face, loud, aggressive drums? Boy, that would be unique. It works though. That's cool, but now we have a mismatch between these big drums and the Sintra Monastery band. How do we blend these big, epic drums with the choir, flute, and guitar? It's like they're in 2 separate worlds. The answer? Orchestration. What we're going to do is try to fill in the gap in space and energy between these 2 elements. This is also where we try to put the beauty in the music and make it sound good. In my opinion, this is the hardest and most demanding, yet most fulfilling part of the process. People spend their whole lives mastering orchestration, arrangement, and even sequencing, the process of putting all this into the computer and making it sound good. For me, this is where the big time sink is, and if I'm not mindful of my time, I can get caught up in the little details that nobody but me would ever notice. This is the part where we add the woodwinds, brass, strings, and extra choir samples to the mix. Let's start with the strings. I was going for a really full, lush, and warm string sound. These fill up a lot of sonic real estate, and they really are the foundation for the orchestration of this track. Sometimes I'll start with the brass or woodwinds or just use the full orchestra, but in this case I wanted to focus in on one element and get that down before moving on to the others. I also went through and added new choir samples since, especially when we enter the B section, the choir is a really important part. And here's the original choir. And here's the new choir. They're both still in there though. To increase that epic factor, I made sure to add a children's choir in there too. I think that's probably the only time you can say that children add epicness to anything. Why is that? Did the Lord of the Rings soundtrack condition us to feel that whenever we hear a children's choir, we're going on some epic adventure? Or do we subconsciously imagine children in peril and feel a natural human drive to go rescue them? I don't know, but it works either way. On to the woodwinds. Here in the A section, the woodwinds add some rhythmic variety and energy. And once we get to the B section, they trade that off with the strings. When thinking about form, it's generally advised to create some contrast between each section. The A section establishes a sense of fortitude and heroism, so the B section brings in elements of darkness, evil, and intrigue. The harmonies get a little more dissonant, and now we've modulated from D minor to B minor. We want to create a B section that drives our ears to want to return home to the A section. So as we approach the end of this section, we add in a big crescendo and all the instruments, and eventually lead to that climax right at the return to the A section. And now we're home. Back to the solid foundation we remember from earlier, but now with a few added ornamental notes, like these woodwind runs. These small changes help to differentiate the first A section from this new one. It shows the new things we've learned on our journey through the evil section. Now we leveled up. As we get to the end of the track, we add in the brass for a big ending. And right on that last note, increase the send to the reverb bus to get a big reverb tail. Making the music sound like it's fading off into the massive hall around us. If we had had the reverb send this high throughout the whole track, it would have sounded like this. A little sloppy to say the least. One too many meads at the tavern, I guess. And now it's on to mixing. Here we make sure with some volume automation that the primary focus in each section is front and center. Well, I guess that's not a way to put it, because if everything was front and center and in mono, it would sound like this. Yeah, that's not what we want. The wonders of stereo. What we want is to get a good wide stereo image, one resembling that of a real orchestra if you were sitting in the front row in a concert hall. That's the sound we're going for. Once we finish editing all the little details in the mix, we export the track and listen to it back on a few different devices, like iPhone speaker and headphones, to make sure nothing stands out. Now after listening back a couple more times to make sure it's not clipping at all, which sounds like this, now we're all done, and we can upload the track and send it off to the host's creator. I keep saying host's creator. I'm not talking about her mom. I'm talking about the host. The show's creator, Alyssa. So we can send it off to Alyssa, and hopefully she likes it. And at that point, we're all done. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Track Breakdown. Let me know what you liked or disliked about it, and if there's any questions you'd want to hear answered. I'd love to hear from you so I can help to refine these videos. I highly encourage you to go check out Breakfast in Beauclair. It's a great podcast, and even if you're not a Witcher fan, it's a great entry into the universe. It's got a lot of variety, guests, and a great host. What more could you ask for? Thanks for watching the video. And if you're a composer, what techniques or tips do you have that you think could help my music or other people's? And if you're not a composer, why not? Thanks again for watching, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. If you didn't like it, give it a dislike, but still subscribe. Maybe someday I'll be able to live up to what you expect from a YouTube video.